So most HVAC companies measure satisfaction, but very few measure how hard it was for the customer to actually get their problem solved. So customer effort score reveals the friction in your service experience. So when effort is high, loyalty drops fast, even if the repair itself was done correctly. So the simple way to get this is to have a one question, survey after any job and asking them on a scale, of 1 to 5, how hard or how easy was it to get this done? 5 being the highest, 1 being the lowest. And so that's what this data set is showing. And you might not be asking this question, but you should, because then it'll let you know, like it'll help with reviews, it'll help with just overall customer satisfaction. And so this data set here, and if you want this data set, there is a link to download it, or you can just shoot me an email. But it's pretty basic, survey ID, work order ID, invoice number, when, the open date, and then acquisition channel, all these different variables. But all we need is the event date that we saw, the open date, and then right here, customer effort score. And I just put random numbers here, but you would have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so, 5 being the easiest and 1 being the hardest. So the higher number, the better. And of course, you could flip this, right? You could have the lower number, the better, however you want to do it. But normally it's like 5-star reviews, right? Like normally the higher, the better. And so let's get started. All we have to do on this tab here is we need to get the end of the month here so we can put these into different cohorts. And the way we do that is using the EOMONTH function. So equals EOMONTH, go all the way over here to the open date, comma, 0, and then press enter, and then you have it here. And you can see these match. So I'm going to delete this column. I just wanted to show you how to do it. And the formula is here. So if you download this file, it'll be there waiting for you. And then the next thing we need to do here is we need to get a unique list of that month column that we just created. We don't want duplicate values. So equals unique here, and then month, and then you can just close that, and you can see that we have the months. And also it's important that the data is in sequential order, because when we build the chart, you don't want to have like January then March, right? You want to have January, February, March, April. Okay, I'm going to copy these next variables, how many surveys were given, what was the average, and then a target. So to count the number of surveys, because in the data set, each row is a survey. So we just need to count the number of times January 31st, 2025 shows up. So count if, right? Count the number of rows if it's January 31st, and we're going to use this range here that we want to count. So highlight that range, make sure you're highlighting the table, and then it's cell B3, right? You can sort of see, sometimes the formula covers up the cell, but it's B3 here. Double click that, and you can fill that in. You can drag it down as well, whatever's easiest. And then the next thing we want, so we wanted to count if this was January 31st, if it was February 28th, so on and so forth. And now here we want to average if. So we want an average if, this is average this column if this is January 31st, February 28th. So equals average if. I'll use average if s. With the conditional sums and averages, I always use the s because it means multiple criteria. So average if without the s is just a single criteria. So you could do that here, but I always use average if s. And the main reason is because the first range is the average range. With average if, the last range is the average range. And I have no idea why they do that, but I always like doing the range first for that we want the average of, or the sum of. So here, this is what we're trying to average, is the customer effort score, comma, where the month here, comma, is B3, right? And so you can see that that's there. And now we have that. I'm going to press Control-Shift-1 to just make it to 2 decimals. And then let's say you have a target of 4.0. Then underneath, equals above, equals the one above it, enter, and then double click. And now you have a dynamic changing cell. And that way, whenever we build the chart with the line, if we change it, every month will go up or down, depending on which direction you're trying to go. Okay, so the final thing to build this chart is just click anywhere in your data, or you can highlight the data. Go to Insert, go to Recommended Charts, go to All Charts, go to Combo, and then now you can sort of see what we want. So this is the customer effort score. So on the y-axis, this axis here, we want the average. We don't want the surveys, because a survey is just a secondary measure that it helps paint a picture, but at the same time, we want the main KPI to be on the y-axis. So what you can do is we want the surveys on a secondary axis here. And then for the average, we want a line. We don't want a clustered column. And so you have that here. Neither one of these are on a secondary axis, which is good because we want them on the main axis. And then you can click OK. And yeah, that's pretty much how you create it. The rest is just sort of, aesthetics. So the first thing I'm going to do is I don't want 2 decimals here. I want to keep 2 decimals here. I don't want to keep 2 decimals in the chart. So I'm going to double click on the y-axis, and then this will pull up with the 3 columns, go to number, and then just 1, just so you can see the step up. And then for the green line, I'm going to also click on that, click the little paint bucket here, and then I'm going to just change the color, make it a little bit thinner, maybe a dotted line or something, because we just want to see it. Like, we don't want it to take up a lot of real estate. And then remember when I said a dynamic line, so you can see how it changes, and that's what we want. So 3.5, you can do 3.75, however you want to do it. It will round here because this is only to 1 decimal. Okay, and then finally, if you want the values on the chart, then all you have to do is you can click. So if you click on the chart, you'll see this crosshair here. And then if you do data labels, it's just way too noisy. So if you want it just for, say, the line, click on the line, and then you can see all the little squares, and then do the data labels. And now you can see it's less noisy, and I'll show you another way to do this, but if you're fine with this, what you can do is you can click some and move them away a little bit if you want. Or you can click on the number, and then you can add a background. You can make it bold. And another thing, if you don't want this to 2 decimals, then you can double click, and then you can go to and do the same thing. Number, and then number, and then 1. And now you can see it's only 1. So that's one way to do it. If you only want, say, the high and the low values, then you can just double click on that, like the high point, and then go to data label, and then on the low point, and then go to data label. What you'll see is only that, that point has that little box. And then you can do the same background if you want. You can make it bold, you can increase the font size, however you want to do it. And then if you wanted to remove the decimal, you could just, go back in and do the number and do it to 1. And then finally, let me change the title here. But yeah, so that's how you do it. And it's a pretty simple KPI. I mean, I know the hardest part is getting the data, right? But it's a simple, 1-question survey that you can do at the end of any job. And in reality, you don't need everybody to answer it. If you can get 30-40% of your customers to answer it, then you have enough data to create these KPIs, like, to make a decision, essentially. And so yeah, as always, if you have any questions, shoot me an email, questions@databoards. And then if you want this data set, there's a link to download it, or you can shoot me an email. And then finally, if you do need some help getting your data organized, getting it structured, getting the insights, getting the KPIs, all that stuff, then there's a link to my calendar, or you can just shoot me an email. But anyways, that is it for this one, and I will see you in the next one.